Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 57 of the All Dolphins podcast. And Omar, I got one for you here you'll love because, as we all know, you love offensive linemen. And I'm going to give you the greatest offensive lineman, arguably in Dolphin history, Hall of Famer Dwight Stevenson.
He wore 57. Okay, I didn't know that. Excellent. And for those who are saying, how do you not know what Dwight Stevenson's number wore? I wasn't alive to watch Dwight Stevenson, but I've heard great tales from guys like Joe Rose who played with him and Kim Bocamper. So I heard he was a monster.
And here's what I would say about him. And I'm going to even preface it by saying I said what I said. If you take away the obvious impact of playing different position for position, as good a player as there ever was in Dolphin history. I mean, the dude was a baller. Okay, so having said
first ballot Hall of Famer?
I don't know if he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. He only played 8 seasons. Still made the Hall of Fame. Blew out his knee. I mean, shredded the knee completely in a Monday night game against the New York Jets on an interception return on an extraordinarily unnecessarily blocked by a former college teammate at the University of Alabama, Marty Lyons, which trust me, drew the ire of a lot of Dolphin fans because, again, it was a completely unnecessary block because Stevenson was, as I recall, not close to making the tackle on the INT return and basically blew up the knee, and he was done at that point.
Wow. You come here and you get Dolphins history on alldolphins.com because I didn't know all of that information.
Yeah, how about that? But yeah, you can ask Joe the next time you're on, you do a guest host spot on WQAM. Ask Joe just how good he was. And a quick programming note: we're doing this like about noonish. As news warrants over the next couple of days, we will do bonus episodes. There'll not be a new number. What we might do is 57A, 57B, depending on what warrants said. So be on the lookout for that. If you subscribe, you'll get a notification when it's coming up. Or
do us a favor and click the bell button and subscribe so that you know when we have a latest episode. And so when it comes up, when you go on your YouTube or wherever you find your podcast, you could just go to the subscription area and we're right there. It's all Dolphins and Miss Rachel for me because I got a 2-year-old.
There you go. I have no idea who Miss Rachel is.
How do you know who Miss Rachel is?
No, I don't. But I do remember from my kids' childhood those days, stuff like Paw Patrol. I saw you on social media pumping up Paw Patrol. I remember Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol is very big in my household right now. Unfortunately, we just learned that my daughter, who knew her letters maybe 3 months ago, doesn't remember her letters anymore. And that's too much Paw Patrol. We got to go back to Sesame Street.
There you go. Okay. Whatever works, man. You got to make it work. So we did not do a podcast yesterday. We did the podcast, I should say, after the Mike McDaniel press conference, recapping the Jacksonville game. We talked about the Jacksonville game earlier. So we'll go over what the news of the day was for Mike McDaniel. There's some news already on Monday. Our good friend Marcel, who celebrating his birthday. Happy birthday, Marcel. Reported that the Dolphins are waiving Jalen Twyman, the young defensive tackle from the University of Pittsburgh. Don't think either one of us are going to be terribly shocked by that move.
No, I thought he was practice squad worthy, though. But, I can understand. He's a good one-gap penetrator.
Correct. There's some pass rushing ability for the interior defensive lineman.
Yeah, but we don't need pass rushers. We need gap killers, gap eaters.
Yeah, we need stout defensive line, particularly with the way they're playing with their interior defensive linemen, who need to have a lot of bulk more so than, a guy like, Manuel Ogba. Maybe. I'm sorry. I had to go there. Sorry. Okay. I had to go there.
Touche.
Okay. So the big news of the day related to the Mike McDaniel press conference, I guess, would be good news on David Davis. Not great news on Elijah Campbell. It's not an ACL, but the way Mike McDaniel was talking, it's semi-significant. So what's that mean for him?
If it's not an ACL, then your best case is your other options are PCL or MCL or a meniscus. either way, you're talking 2-3 months at the minimum.
Okay, so do you keep him? Do you put him on post 53 IR, or you think he's gonna wind up heading to IR straight up, which would not?
I don't know. We'd have to know. You actually educated me yesterday that only a select number of players can go on IR, which is something that I have never known.
Okay, let me jump in right here, and this is what we're talking about. Let us give you a quick primer on those rules with IR and everything else. What I didn't know earlier on is counting all your reserve lists, including IR, NFI, whatever, pup, you can never have at any point during the year more than 90 players. Even if you have 53 on your active roster, you can't. So, for example, you can have 40 guys on IR. That's number one. The guys who are post 53 IR, which means they're on the initial 53, then they're placed on IR, giving them the ability to come back after 4 games. You have a minimum of 8 of those moves per year. Now, you can do it twice for the same player.
Hold on, a minimum or maximum?
All right, maximum of 8.
Yes.
Sorry, my apologies. You can have the same player do that twice, but each time counts as against your 8. So
you're telling me that if I use up my 8 and then a player suffers a season-ending injury in week 12, I have to do what with him?
No, he can go on IR, but he can't come back.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we're only worried about the 8 that can come back. Okay,
correct. It's 8 designated to return. Okay,
I say let the dice roll with Elijah Campbell. If he's like Poop, he could have been the starter.
Maybe.
Now, am I sure he can get back to that point with whatever this knee issue is? If it's a meniscus like Jalen Ramsey, then I'm probably not going to designate him to return. Or actually, I don't have to decide these things now. I can decide this in December who gets to come back.
Well, no, but
you have to designate them initially.
No, but he's got to make the initial 53 to be eligible to be designated.
Okay, he makes the initial 53. I'm not. As I continue to tell you, and you keep ignoring, I don't care if anybody claims anybody on my team.
I'm not ignoring it. You keep repeating every day. How can I ignore it? I know that's where you stand on this.
Like, bro, this roster. I was going down, and this is. I really want you to address this because I was thinking about this. Because Dolphin fans, they get upset when I keep saying this. They're like, "How dare you? How dare you?" Like I'm trashing the roster, and I'm not trashing the roster. As I correlated. You imagine you're holding a wedding. You're putting together a wedding for your wonderful daughter who's got many, many years to go. And you're having 300 guests. And so all you've bought is top shelf liquors, the finest of vodkas, the finest of tequilas. Maybe you've bought 2 bottles of each. Okay, is that going to feed your 300 guests? I mean, is that going to take care of the party for your 300 guests? Or
by the way, this is not vodka; it's water.
Or do you need beers, liquors, some bottom shelf liquor? My problem is the Dolphins have a lot of top shelf liquor, and they don't have enough wines and beers to keep the party going. Okay. And let me give you the top backups on this team. Okay, I'm putting together a list of the 10 top backups on this team. Raekwon Davis, who technically is a backup because they only use 2 defensive linemen, right? We will agree with that.
No, at times they'll use 2 and they'll use 3 at times.
Yeah. At a goal line, short yardage, okay, they'll use 3. Raekwon isn't a starter. Raekwon Davis, Kendall Lamb, Duke Riley, Cam Smith, because I counted Eli Apple as a starter since he's in the three cornerback package. Liam Eichenberg, Eric Uzukama, Devon Achane, Emmanuel Ogba, Tyler Croft. Those are your top 10 backups. How is that list pleasing, encouraging? And you don't want me to keep going on these backups because
no quarterback in there?
It was a quarterback. I just left it out. We know that battle ain't over. We know it's both of those guys.
Okay, and by the way, since we're talking about the quarterbacks here real quickly, Mike McDaniel said that we will have an announcement more than likely on the backup quarterback next Monday, Labor Day, which is also the day the Dolphins have to release their first regular season depth chart, which that one has meaning as opposed to the one that we saw in the preseason.
It's going to be an or.
See, I don't. And for the preseason, it was Mike White who was second, and I think that's going to stay the same way. That's my.
You might be right. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Back to Elijah Campbell.
Skyler didn't earn it.
Correct. By the way, did you know he tied for the NFL lead in interceptions in the preseason with 4 with Malik Willis of the Tennessee Titans? I know it doesn't mean anything. I'm just throwing out nuggets here. Okay. I know you're shrugging your shoulders.
He played horribly against Jacksonville.
And yet Mike McDaniel said the second pick wasn't on him at all. He said there was just a bad blitz pickup, and
he didn't have to throw.
Recognize that he had to throw the ball, except he threw it right at the linebacker who was in front of the receiver. I might quibble with Mike McDaniel on that one, but he's
throw it away, live for another day.
Well, that's or take the sack. I mean, because I believe it was first down. Anyway, on my final roster projection, which came out today on alldolphins.com, I had the Dolphins keeping. I mean, I'm assuming again it's not a meniscus of the same type of Jalen Ramsey. I had Elijah Campbell on my initial 53, and then he's going to go on IR. And they said where I could see a swap here of DBs with Keon Cross, and initially is it going to be waived or contract terminated? I'm not even sure, and then brought back.
I think Elijah Campbell's injury probably opens the door for Verone McKinley to make the 53. It's a possibility. And
I think so.
Did you put him on your 53, which you can find on alldolphins.com?
See, now you're asking me to give away the product for free. I'll give you this last nugget, and then I'm not telling you anything else. You want to see it, go check it out on alldolphins.com. Yes, I had Verone McKinley on my 53.
You just copied me. That's all it was.
That's exactly. It's copy and paste, actually. Shh, don't tell anybody. That's how I write my stories. Another quick note here, primer type situation. You will see when the roster moves are announced tomorrow. Waived, contract terminated, and it involves vested veterans. Vested veterans are guys who have 4 accrued seasons. These are the guys who become UFAs as opposed to RFAs or exclusive rights free agents. And an accrued season it's a minimum number of weeks on the roster. I don't recall exactly what it's, 4 or 6 or whatever. The guys who are waived then are subject to waivers, which means that every team around the league has a crack, and they can claim a crack at it, and they can claim any player they want. And if multiple teams claim the same player, it goes by the waiver priority order, which is based on the draft order. For the Dolphins, that means this is the draft order before trades or forfeited picks, which was what happened to the Dolphins last year. So for the Dolphins, it's 21st. So for if there's like a stud young player who is not a vested veteran who somehow gets waived, the Dolphins will have to hope that 20 teams before them don't claim him.
Or trade him today. Trade for him today.
There you go. And then when it comes to
which has happened on a number of occasions.
Yep. And then when it comes to the vested veterans, those guys will have their contract terminated. They're not subject to waivers. They can now negotiate, and anybody can sign them at any time. And the only exception to that rule with the veterans, it's at the end of the season. I don't know exactly how many weeks. Then every player becomes subject to waivers.
Even after the trade deadline.
That makes sense. This is so. I'm gonna guess that the reason is that so 2 coaches don't have a wink. Okay, we're out of the playoff race. I'll take care of you here. So
that is correct.
So that's the deal. What else stood out from Mike McDaniel yesterday? I'm trying to think here.
We addressed Elijah Campbell.
He addressed the number 2 quarterback situation. He addressed the contract of Zach Sealer. Obviously, very happy for him and all that. And then he also made the point that it's got nothing to do with Christian Wilkins. They want to try to take care of everybody, but the situations are independent of each other.
Hold on. Time out. What did Drew Rosenhaus say 2 weeks ago? He said, I can't get a deal done with any of my players. The Dolphins are focused on the Christian Wilkins deal, and they've got no money for anybody else until that gets done. Okay. Instantly, money gets freed up, other priorities get made. And I think it was a wise move from this standpoint. I will argue this, and I have not looked at the contract terms of Zach Sealer's deal. I always wait for the terms to be produced to the league as opposed to what's being reported. I'm not doubting Drew. I know Drew is a very honest guy when it comes to contracts. $20 million guaranteed. Here's how you calculate that. More than likely, this is a 4-year deal because it factors in this year's deal. And then you throw on top of the signing bonus. I don't know exactly what the signing bonus was, but if you calculate it, you've got Sealer's probably going to be making that $10 million guaranteed over the next 2 years. So $10 million a season. Okay. I only factor in guaranteed money when I talk about players. So so you're basically saying that Zach Sealer is a $10 million a year player, which I said from the very beginning when we started talking about framework or contracts with Zach Sealer, he is a $10 million a year player. He can go out in the market and he can easily get $10 million. Now, what Christian is asking for is what his peers are getting, which is in the $18.5, $19 million realm. And again, you can talk fantasy, you can talk fake numbers, the 24, 25. I don't talk fake numbers. I only talk real numbers, what they're going to get. So the Dexter Lawrences, the Quinn Williams, the guy from Tennessee, can't remember his name. All of those guys are getting 18.5 to 19 million a year. Christian wants 18.5 to 19 million a year. Now, I'm going to ask you, Alain Poupart, if Zach Sealer is worth $10 million, is Christian worth 18.5?
Okay, if we're sure that's what we're sure that's not, that he doesn't want even more than that?
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure he wants more than that, but let's be realistic, which is why the deal has not gotten done.
No, correct. And one point that needs to be made is why Wilkins before Sealer? Well, if you have multiple guys you want to take care of, kind of makes sense to go with the biggest contracts first. So if they took care of Sealer,
I disagree.
Sorry?
I said I disagree, but continue.
If you have multiple contracts to take care of, you're going to go with the big money first. I think that, to me, that's pretty logical. And it's kind of piggybacks on what Drew said. That's kind of what he said. But anyway.
If you could get that deal done. And then if you can't get that deal done, you move on and you address the other deals. Correct.
But with this, that's precisely my point. You don't go with like a significant deal and then with your monster deal. I don't think that's logical, but that's just me. What the hell do I? Anyway, no, I don't think Christian Wilkins is twice the player that Zach Sealer is. I don't think that's quite fair. And this is where we just discussed this before, and I don't necessarily want to go over the same ground, but it's great. Yeah, the Dolphins should take care of Christian Wilkins. He's been great and all that. You just can't give him just everything he wants. It doesn't work like that. And again, I'm going to go back to, you can tell me how great he is against running. He is great against the run. He's as good as there is among defensive linemen against the run, but he does not affect the passing game the way other defensive tackles do. And I've done the research, and last year, 8 of the top 13 teams in the NFL in terms of rushing yards allowed per carry. I don't do per game because if you're a stud team like Kansas City, which is always ahead, teams don't stop running the ball. So your rushing yards against per game will get lower automatically if you're ahead more often. Rushing yards per carry, to me, is a better indicator. And 8 of the top 13 teams in that category last year did not make the playoffs. So, and conversely, 6 of the top 11 teams.
Are you frozen?
No, you're frozen. Conversely, 6 of the top 11 teams in terms of sacks per attempts made the playoffs. So that percentage is a little bit higher than being great against the run. So to me, again, to get the big money that Christian Wilkins wants, he would need to be a little bit more of a factor as a pass rusher. And this problem, my guess is what the Dolphins have told Christian Wilkins. And I'm sure Christian and his representation have told them, bah humbug or whatever they said.
I'm sorry, I've frozen a couple of times, but whatever you said.
There you go. Ultimately, and I'm putting together an analysis piece for alldolphins.com about the Wilkins situation.
Make sure you point out that the organization has not signed a defensive lineman that they've drafted to an extension, multi-year extension since 2012 with Paul Solii.
I know you love that stat, and then my counter to that stat is how many stud defensive linemen have they drafted since then?
Olivier Vernon,
who's kind of an edge guy, but okay.
Yeah, I didn't say defensive tackle. He was a defensive lineman.
Oh, you're right, defensive end. Okay, and then also the other thing is, I know you keep talking about bringing waiver wire claims and all that.
And you keep trying to poo my dreams.
I have finished my research project, which also I will write about on alldolphins.com today, and I will just give you a little nugget. Since 2010, the Dolphins have claimed 81 players on waivers. Can you venture a guess as to how many of those ended up starting more than 5 games for the Dolphins?
What year did we begin this?
2010.
Okay, Michael Thomas.
Won't take too long because it makes for bad to you, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna go with 4.
Michael Thomas was not a waiver claim. Michael Thomas was signed off the 49er practice squad.
So hold on, you're not counting 49er practice squad guys?
You just said you. No. You're saying is waiver claim.
You claim somebody. You claim somebody. Okay, for your analysis, fine, but I'm also including practice squad poaching. And there's danger to practice squad poaching because you have to technically keep that player on your 53-man roster for a month. So there's risk associated there. But I value more the practice squad poaches than I do the waiver wire claims, because practice squad guys are guys you want to develop. A waiver wire claim could be the same thing. It's a guy you waive to put him on your practice squad. But to me, the practice squad guys are players 54 through, God, how many? 59 to 69. Whereas a waiver wire guy, maybe player number 70, 71, 72. But yeah, I mean, right now we're not going to be poaching any practice squad guys.
No, Omar, you talked about practice squad guys. Before they get to the practice squad, they have to be waived.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. But
okay, I'll allow it. I'll allow it. But you got it. But how do you not factor in Michael Thomas? He's a claim. He was a claim
because they signed him in December off the team's practice squad. That's not the same thing. What I was talking about is the Dolphins claiming players the day after
waivers.
Off of waivers, guys get waived. Okay. Generally speaking, they might do a couple. They didn't do any last year. But they did like 5, for example, in 2019 when they went nuts with waiver claims the whole time. So my whole thing with that is don't necessarily, by the way, the answer was 3. Don't necessarily temper your expectations when you're dealing with players like that. Okay. You could find a gem, sure, but
I'm just going thrift store shopping, man. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah. Yes.
Like I didn't tell you I was going to Neiman Marcus. I'm thrift shopping.
Okay.
And you telling me this roster can't benefit from thrift shopping? I think you would do well with a good trip to Goodwill.
But I'm not sure exactly what kind of stores we're looking at, and I'm keeping an eye as cuts keep getting made throughout the NFL. A bunch of former Dolphin players are getting whacked. By the way, Kenyon Drake terminated in Indianapolis. Julian Davenport of Laramie Tunsil trade fame, released by the New York Giants or terminated by the New York Giants. Sorry?
I said he sucked.
That's not very nice. But then as I tweeted a little earlier today, Michael Dieter looks like he's going to start at left guard for the Houston Texans. And isn't that
to him? When I say, give you an example, Philip Dingleham, who is my assistant GM, he knows what I like. He goes out and he finds it for me. In the college realm, one of my favorite followers because he knows exactly what I like in players. He's found Alec Okabahama. I don't even know how to say his name. Number 85 for the Broncos.
For the Broncos, yeah, who lit it up in the preseason finale.
Lucas Krill with the Saints. Parker Hesse with the Falcons. Drew Ogletree with the doesn't say what team. And Will Mallory, University of Miami tight end with the Colts. If the Colts try to put him on the practice squad, I'm a Will Mallory fan. Sign me up. Sign me up.
He's a rookie draft pick. If the Colts let him go as a rookie draft pick, what does that tell you about Will Mallory?
Miami might let Elijah Higgins go as a rookie draft pick. Doesn't necessarily.
Correct. Would you advocate for any other team in the NFL to pick him up? That's precisely my point. Thank you. Thank you for proving my point. Alberto is intriguing to me. I'm not convinced he's going to be available, but he'd be something.
I'm not saying that these guys are going to be available, but if that my example that I continue to try to convince you on is let's go thrift store shopping for tight ends. Let's go thrift store shopping for a safety. Let's go thrift store shopping for a backup defensive tackle, a nose tackle. Let's just see what's available. Kick the tires for a couple of weeks. Maybe they go on our practice squad. Maybe we dump them later. Like, you have 5 spots on your roster that you can do this with, because do not lie to yourself and tell yourself this roster is good. Don't.
It's thin. I don't. I think you're maybe a little over dramatic in your assessment of the bottom of the roster. I don't think it's quite.
We will revisit this conversation in December when they are on fumes and Verone McKinley is starting at safety. We will revisit this.
Now you're taking a shot at Verone McKinley. We wanted to touch on something, or you wanted to touch on something else today. Things you learned from the Dolphins in training camp in the preseason. Did you learn a whole lot that opened your eyes that you didn't know about this team? Did you, for example?
I did. I did.
So you did.
I did. I'm going to give Butch Barry some props. I was initially kind of critical and kind of skeptical, extremely skeptical, because of the body of work that he had at University of Miami and what he achieved in Denver, where he was basically laughed out of town. Yes, this is preseason. Yes, this is the exhibition game, but I have not seen a moment where the action wasn't real, that this offensive line wasn't creating a surge, getting run blocking, creating angles. The Dolphins finished 3rd in the preseason, averaging 165 rushing yards per game, 5.6 per carry. I know that won't hold up. Yes, big plays are a byproduct of that, but that's what this defense is meant to do, create big running plays. That's what this offense is meant to do in this offensive running style, create big running plays. Miami averaged 53.7 yards more than what the league averaged in the preseason. That's without Teron Armstead. That's without finishing the Jacksonville preseason game. That's without having having quality backups and a settled spot at your left guard spot. Listen, I am very convinced that this team is going to be a good running team with Jonathan Taylor, without Jonathan Taylor, and we gotta address that. And I do like these backs. This Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson last year, collectively, including what Jeff Wilson did with San Francisco, they ran for 1,750 yards last season. That's nothing to turn your nose up at. That's over 100 yards per game. And it could potentially get better with Jonathan Taylor or with Devon Achane, if you're a big believer in Devon Achane. That's one of the things I learned. Obviously, another thing I learned is that roster depth is a concern. I'm going to scream it from the mountaintops until something is done about it, because I know it will cost you games, if not the playoff berth in December, when football really matters.
Actually, you're screaming it from your laptop. Go ahead. Forget mountaintop. From the laptop. Go ahead.
Yes. I am not. Another thing I learned is that the Christian Wilkins extension is not a layup. I've said from the very beginning, and you are my witness, I don't think it's going to happen. And we shall see. Also, another thing I've learned, and this follows through with what we saw last year, which is that the rookies have a steep learning curve. You covered this team last year. I did not. I did not know how complex this offense was. And now you're installing a new defense. And I think Cam Smith's mistake in getting beat with a double move is a perfect example. What did Vic Fangio say leading into Saturday's game? I got to know if I could trust him.
Yeah, but that one wasn't scheme related. I think we could say that for maybe some other guys, but that he just got beat by he got beat by an NFL move. It didn't matter what the defense called for on that particular play.
Don't peek in the backfield. You're a rookie. Don't peek in the backfield.
No, I agree with you, but that to me that's not related to scheme. And like Channing Tindall, for example, maybe had an issue with the scheme. Eric Uzukama, once the regular season arrived, except he actually looked good in training camp last year and in the preseason. And then the regular season arrived, and it was like basically Wes Welker is kind of half suggesting he doesn't know where to line up as a rookie. That becomes an issue. And then this year with Cam Smith, again, other than that blip, the dude's been very good. He had a pass breakup after that play in the game against the Jaguars. It wasn't all bad, but that's obviously biting on a double move like that can't happen at the NFL level.
Yeah. The one thing I am learning is, and I truly did not know this, is that it's complex with these rookies. So we're going to go probably another year where you're going to see the rookies put on ice, put on a red shirt program. Maybe Cam Smith is the exception. Kader Kohou was the exception last year. Now the question is, will the second year players step up and step forward? And I don't know.
Like who?
I have the huh?
Like who? Channing Tindall, Eric Uzukama.
We are getting to my depth concerns, and you poo-poo it all the time. And here you go, just making my argument for me.
Well, yeah, I'm not expecting like a major role on defense for Channing Tindall again, to be very honest with you. I think he's going to be mostly special teams, and then he's your fourth, if not fifth inside linebacker if they pick up somebody else. And Eric Uzukama, I don't know that he plays more of a role than Robbie Chosen after they terminate his contract and bring him back. Yes, I said it. That's my expectation for him.
Tanner Connor.
Well, no, Tam, we didn't see Tanner Connor at all this summer until this last week, and there's nothing that I saw this week to make me think that, you got to have him on the 53. So, yeah, no, I don't know that you're going to have a whole lot of contributions. I would expect Cam Smith to contribute at some point. I think A-Chain, once his shoulder is right, absolutely has a role on offense.
Especially if Savon is sidelined for an extended period.
No, Savon's fine, by the way. That was another thing that Mike McDaniel said after the game. Not in a concussion protocol. He's day-to-day. And if you saw, there's a picture of him that we actually have on the site where he's kneeling with Myles Gaskin when David Davis got hurt. So he was with the team on the sideline at the end of the game. So he was fine. It was kind of a little bit scary because he took a headshot, an unnecessary headshot there from the Jacksonville defender. But he's fine. So no major issues there. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and another thing that I've learned is Vic Fangio's defense. It's complex. He's clearly the top newcomer added to this team. I would argue to you, I'm not sure that there are many newcomers who will make a significant contribution, but Vic Fangio is that newcomer. He is that and I'm curious to see what it looks like when we see it in practice when he's not doing vanilla and he's ramping up the blitz, but that's usually just for a period. I'm dying to see what it looks like for real when the games matter and he doesn't have to throw out their vanilla, when he puts the sprinkles and sauce and some nuts, because I'm a big nuts guy on my Sundays. No chocolate, strawberry. But I think it's going to be a very intriguing, exciting defense to watch, and I'm curious to see how it plays out for the team.
No, I agree, and I will go back, and then after this, let's wrap up with Jonathan Taylor. I'm like you, because Butch Barry, again, as you mentioned, did not exactly come in with a glowing resume based on what happened with him at the University of Miami and with the Broncos. But the offensive line actually has looked, while still maybe a bit of a question mark, it's actually looked fairly solid for most of the summer. Jonathan Taylor, what's the latest? What do we know?
It is
a little bit.
It is. You're just waiting to see who is the other bidder, and they're standing offers from Dolphins that are clearly not good enough. If another bidder steps forward, I assume the Eagles will be involved. This is just a guess. nothing more than speculation. The Tuesday deadline is real because of a decision that the Colts have to make, what to do with Jonathan Taylor's status. If he stays on the PUP, he cannot play for the first portion of the season, and that doesn't change if he's traded. So we shall see. It's an awaiting pattern. I would put it at the same rate that I put all the other deals, 50-50. I think the Dolphins have what's in their favor is they've got an owner who's willing to agree to make Jonathan Taylor one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL. They're probably that narrows down a short list of owners to about 1/4 of the teams. Now, would a team like the Eagles look at Jonathan Taylor and say, let's offer up our second or possibly our first, considering it's probably going to be the back end of our roster, to make us a real legitimate Super Bowl contender again? And we won't know that until probably the next 24 hours. And then that team that's also in the bidding would have to agree to the framework of a deal, because Jonathan Taylor's not getting traded without a framework of a new contract being agreed to.
Correct. And an important point I think that needs to be made here is when we say like the offer hasn't been good enough yet, well, the Colts don't have to do anything now. So it behooves the Colts to like wait until the very last second until they have to make that move to see if somebody else comes in with a better offer, or play a bluffing game with the Dolphins. Like, that's not going to get it done. What you're giving us, give us some more. And then if the Dolphins say, no, that's it, that's a final offer, then the Colts, again, don't have to do anything now. They can wait until 4 o'clock or 3:58 tomorrow and go, okay, fine, you have a deal.
Yeah, I personally believe that the Dolphins will not sweeten their offer much. I think this is something that they're intrigued by. It's not something that they say, we absolutely have to do this. We're trying to get a deal here. We're trying to get a bargain here. We're trying to take advantage of the system. Right. And for those worried and concerned that it's going to challenge what you could do with Christian Wilkins, no, it won't. Christian Wilkins, his cap number actually goes down if he signs a multi-year extension. Now, it'll be challenging next year, but as I've continued to say, worry about next year. Stop focusing on the credit card debt. Live your life. Ball out. Go eat at Komodo. Do your thing. The credit. Hope the credit card bill will get paid later on.
Not a Papados.
No. You got that's Papados would never cut it in Miami. You got to go higher end.
Okay, got like Prime.
Sure, Komodo.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
Komodo or a place called Mila's, which I'm very intrigued by. But anyway, continue.
Okay, well, we'll have to do a fine dining segment one of these days. And again, we're going to wrap it up here, but I still maintain, I'm with you, like 50-50 for all of those things. And this is the Dolphins trying to get a bargain, like as they did with Jalen Ramsey, as Omar mentioned. So again, subscribe, keep watching, download, all that good stuff. Tell a friend. If there's news, we will come back and do something else. And if not, they're back at practice on Tuesday, and Tuesday's going to be a big day. So Omar, until next time.